Many fictional movies consist of made-up characters, locations, and sometimes even words. But in most Disney films, you are sure to find yourself pondering the similarities between real places and those in animated movies. And you'd be right. From whimsical palaces to Indian tombs, here are 15 Disney locations that exist in real life. Before we begin, make sure to hit that like button, subscribe to our channel, and click the notification bell for more amazing videos every day. That being said, let's begin. Number 15. Chateau de Chambord, France. To look at Chateau de Chambord in France, it almost doesn't seem real. From the French Renaissance architecture to the medieval features and classical design, it's like something out of a storybook or a movie. Chateau de Chambord, which is one of the most recognizable chateaux in the world, is a real-life Disney destination. If you weren't gonna visit it for its beautiful design, then you would go for its appearance in Beauty and the Beast. Disney animator Glen Keane was having a hard time establishing a home for the Beast from Beauty and the Beast. So when he and his crew visited the Chateau de Chambord, they were blown away by its beauty. They knew nearly immediately that it would be the perfect inspiration for Beast's castle. Anyone who visits France can't help but marvel at its beauty. King Francis commissioned it, and it was then brought to life by Leonardo da Vinci. It's also the most majestic and biggest castle of the Loire, not to mention one of the most visited ones by tourists and Disney fans alike. Now it's time for the star topic. To look at Hungerturm Tower, the Königstein Fortress in Germany, you'd probably find that it seems familiar. On the left is the Disney Rapunzel Castle, where Rapunzel's hair flowed beautifully down its side. And on the right, that's Hungerturm Tower. Are they the same place? Both appear to be quite high, with no way of scaling them if you wanted to, say, rescue a princess. Do you think the inspiration came from this beautiful yet impenetrable real-life tower? Comment down below with the hashtag star topic and let us know your opinion in relation to what we just showed on screen. With that said, let's keep things moving. Number 14. Wreck-It Ralph, Grand Central Terminal, New York City. Any New Yorker will know Grand Central Terminal like the back of their hand. It's both a New York City landmark and a train station that allows people to go about their daily lives. It's even a shopping concourse as one further layer of convenience. Grand Central Terminal has been a must-visit destination for any New Yorker looking to get somewhere since it opened in 1913. But even though it's somewhere that's familiar to most people, you wouldn't expect it to exist in a Disney film. But that's the reality in Wreck-It Ralph. Game Central Station, as it's known, is the gathering place for video game characters from 2012's Wreck-It Ralph and 2018's Ralph Breaks the Internet. Now you understand why the animated venue looks so familiar. Wreck-It Ralph is a 3D computer animated film produced by Disney. Rich Moore, who directed some episodes of Futurama and The Simpsons, played part as the director. As is typical with most Walt Disney Productions films, Wreck-It Ralph was a success, and undoubtedly the real locations helped. It won the Annie Award for Best Animated Film and even had nominations for the Golden Globes and Academy Awards. The film also forms part of a series which gives fans double the dose of real-life venues to ponder. Number 13. Tangled, Mont Saint-Michel, Normandy, France. Tangled is the Disney film that's based on the story of Rapunzel. The setting is the Kingdom of Corona, which may be an enchanted world, but that doesn't mean it's all too far from reality. In fact, the designers can't take much credit for the beautiful kingdom in which Tangled characters found themselves. Mont Saint-Michel is a breathtaking island in Normandy that used to be one of Europe's most well-known pilgrimage destinations. Now it's a tourist hotspot, and also the inspiration for Tangled's Kingdom of Corona. For those who have seen the Disney film Tangled, the penny has inevitably dropped. Mont Saint-Michel has beautifully quaint streets, stunning views, and an old abbey. It also has some of the highest tides in Europe, which adds another enchanting element to it. Sounds impressive, right? That's why it's one of the most visited places in France, with around 2.5 million people descending upon the idyllic location annually. With that many visitors, you'd think the island is a bustling metropolis with tens of thousands of residents. However, that is not the case at all. Mont Saint-Michel has around 44 people living there, and many of them are monks and nuns in the abbey. While you may be excited to visit the island to see how similar it is to the scenes of Tangled, make sure you're courteous. It's essential that you don't take photos of any citizens, especially while they are partaking in religious ceremonies. Number 12. The Hunchback of Notre Dame. Notre Dame Cathedral, Paris, France. It's probably not going to be of any surprise to you that The Hunchback of Notre Dame, a movie based on the book by Victor Hugo, is set in the Notre Dame Cathedral in Paris, France. Well, not in it, but an animated version of it. Disney left no stone unturned in making sure they did the 226-foot cathedral justice. Like the real deal, it had 2 towers, stained glass windows, flying buttresses, gargoyles, and stunning French Gothic architecture. Disney animators recreated the whole thing in their 1996 film. Even though the movie took dark twists and turns, it's hard not to notice how much detailing the animated version of the Notre Dame Cathedral has. The animators genuinely deserve a pat on the back. But of course, nothing will actually outdo the real thing. The Notre Dame Cathedral is a breathtaking example of French Gothic architecture that will continue to bring tourists in their droves. It was built during the 12th and 14th centuries and bore many scars from the French Revolution period. Recent fires left their own scars as well. It spent several years in a state of decay before Napoleon decided he'd be emperor of it in 1804, and it took on a brand new prominence. But the decay continued, and it wasn't until author Victor Hugo personified the structure in his book, The Hunchback of Notre Dame, or Notre Dame de Paris in France, that significant restoration efforts got underway. Number 11. Aladdin Taj Mahal, India. Aladdin has a case of mistaken identity, but it's more to do with the location of this film than anything else. It bears a striking resemblance to a famous structure that's not in the city or country this film is supposedly set. Aladdin is set in Agrabah, which is described as being a city of mystery and enchantment along the Jordan River. However, Sultan's Palace looks more like the Taj Mahal in Agra, India than any structures near the Jordan River. The storyline is also more aligned with the Taj Mahal than any Arab setting. In real life, the Taj Mahal is a sultan wife's tomb rather than a palace. And given that the Sultan of Agrabah in Aladdin is a widower and Jasmine the heroine sees the palace as a prison, it all links in seamlessly, even though it shouldn't. In saying that, everything else relates to the Arab world. Aladdin and Princess Jasmine are Arab, there's a song called Arabian Nights, and the fictional city is actually in the Middle East. Confused? So are we. Number 10. Mulan, Forbidden City, Beijing, China. If you think the setting of Mulan looks strangely familiar, then you'd be right. The Disney film's King's Palace draws its inspiration from the Forbidden City in Beijing, China. It might have been forbidden to visit at one point, but no one said anything about using its likeness. The Forbidden City in Beijing, China was the largest imperial palace in the world and was built in the 15th century. It served the Qing and Ming dynasties for around 24 generations and consisted of a generously sized housing complex that the common folk couldn't enter. It had 980 buildings, 90 palaces, 8,700 rooms, and around 180,000 square yards of space for the king and his people. While about 14 million people visit the Forbidden City now, it was entirely off limits, which you can probably guess from its name. Number 9. The Little Mermaid, Chateau de Chillon, Switzerland. If you were to put a picture of Chateau de Chillon in Switzerland and the castle from The Little Mermaid side by side, it's not hard to see the similarities. It's immediately apparent that The Little Mermaid took at least some inspiration from this structure. Okay, we admit it, it's basically the same building. Chateau de Chillon is a fortress from medieval times that was built on the shores of Lake Geneva. The site on which it's located is from the Bronze Age, but the existence of the fortress wasn't spoken about until at least the 12th century. The structure changed hands over the many years of its existence and is now the most viewed monument in Switzerland. Even better, you can rent it for an event. Knowing you can hire this building is good news for Little Mermaid fans, as you'll get to pretend you're Prince Eric. Number 8. Brave. Eilean Donan Castle, Scotland. You will be amazed at the lengths film creators will go to ensure they perfectly capture the heart, soul, and vibrancy of a location. You'll ultimately see that in Brave, a film by Pixar based in Scotland. The film draws great inspiration from Eilean Donan Castle in Scotland, a 13th century defense structure to protect against the Vikings. It was destroyed in the 18th century, but was rebuilt to the castle you see today. Looking at the two side by side, the real and the animated version, it's easy to draw the connection. Everything from the island to the meeting point of the three seas is perfectly captured in the film. But it wasn't by accident, nor did the team from Brave rely on imagery or guesswork. They actually visited Scotland to find out what all the fuss was about. They wanted to see the forests, coastline, glens, and the country's castles for themselves. All because Brenda Chapman from Pixar was adamant the film would have Scottish landscapes. But the castle wouldn't be like any other you see in average Disney films. It would be a bit rugged, a little spicy and earthy, as the artist put it. They visited the Dunnottar and Eilean Donan castles and settled on Eilean Donan. It would become the fictional Dunbroch Castle in Brave near the sea. The results speak for themselves, and the film is as Scottish as they come. This is all thanks to the time the film team spent in Scotland, learning about the culture, hearing stories, and even soaking up the continuously changing weather. Number 7. Frozen, St. Olaf's Church, Norway. If you've seen the movie Frozen and you visited a few different tourist attractions in Norway, then it's entirely natural to get a sense of deja vu. No, you haven't been in the St. Olaf's Church before your time in Norway, but seeing it in the Disney film Frozen will make you think you have. St. Olaf's Church in Norway was built during the 19th century and became the inspiration for Elsa's coronation scene, where she was crowned Queen of Arendelle. The name of the church must sound familiar to Frozen fans too, and you'd be right. Olaf the Snowman has the same name as that of a beautiful Norwegian church. The church, which is located in Balestrand, Western Norway, is not just beautiful, but romantic. A man called Knut Kvikne and his brother opened the Kviknes Hotel. Knut fell in love with an English mountain climber called Margaret Sophia Green, who was an English pastor's daughter and visited Balestrand in 1888. After 4 years of marriage, Margaret died of tuberculosis. To make true on the promise he made to her, he built a church with a slate roof, oval windows, a tower, and stained glass. Number 6. Up, Angel Falls, Venezuela. One of the most famous scenes in the Pixar movie Up is when the film's protagonist tries to take his family home to the top of Paradise Falls. It would be easy to assume that the falls is made up, but that couldn't be further from the truth. Paradise Falls actually gets much of its inspiration from Angel Falls in Venezuela. Angel Falls is the world's highest waterfall, with an unobstructed fall from Mount Ayuantupoi of over 3,200 feet. And the Pixar team didn't just look at photos of it to decide it was right for their film. Instead, they visited 3 of the mountains and waterfalls in the park: Roraima, Kukunan, and Ayuantupoi. According to one member of the film team, they endured a 6 to 7 hour climb with heavy gear, followed by an hour-and-a-half hike on uneven terrain. It was dark when they arrived at their camp, and after eating warm soup, a lot of them sat down and cried. When you watch Carl and Russell from Up see Paradise Falls for the first time, you can rightly assume that it was the exact same response as the team who saw Angel Falls in person. Number 5. Cars. You Drop In, Shamrock, Texas. It was a simple nail and a bit of soil that promoted a rundown, ramshackle inn known as You Drop In on the decommissioned Route 66 in Shamrock, Texas, to become the inspiration of House of Body Art on the Disney movie Cars. Most people who have seen Cars will know it as Ramon's Body Shop. Thanks to the fame the movie brought, the inn, which used to be the Tower Station and Tower Cafe, is now a National Art Deco architectural monument, as well as a Tesla EV charging station. To look at the photos of both You Drop In and the House of Body Art, it's easy to make the connection for yourself. Number 4. Snow White, Segovia Castle, Spain. Walt Disney was so inspired by the central Spanish Alcazar of Segovia Castle that he used its likeness for the 1937 Disney film Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs. Snow White lived in the castle in the movie with her evil stepmother, who tried to end her life. The real castle, however, has a far different story. For hundreds of years, the castle at the confluence of two rivers on a cliff was inhabited by Spanish monarchs until a fire damaged it in 1862. It was also an Arab fort, a king's palace, a prison, and then a military academy. It has blue-gray turrets, a robust rocky foundation, and a fortress that produced outwards. It's not hard to see why Walt Disney thought it was perfect for Snow White. Today, it's open for the public to view as a museum and archive, so you can imagine your Snow White with her seven dwarfs for a short period of time. Number 3. Sleeping Beauty, Neuschwanstein Castle, Bavaria, Germany. Walt Disney was a bit of a dreamer, and he met his match with the creator of Neuschwanstein Castle in the German Alps. So impressed was he with King Ludwig II and his castle that he used its likeness in his Sleeping Beauty castle in Disneyland. Neuschwanstein Castle, which is a paradise-like palace, is laden with art, poetry, and stories. Every wall tells a story, and King Ludwig II's dreamer-like personality was evident throughout. Given that the king died within weeks of moving into this castle, it's now open to the public to view. Walt Disney was one of those people to enter the doors of the 65,000 square foot castle when he took his wife on a trip to Europe. Its theme inspired Walt Disney as an escape rather than a palace, and it supposedly set the scene for both Sleeping Beauty and Cinderella. Doesn't take an expert to see the resemblance between the castle at Disneyland and the one owned by King Ludwig II in the German Alps. Number 2. Cinderella, Craigievar Castle, Scotland. Hidden away in the northeastern corner of Aberdeenshire in Scotland is a beautiful castle called Craigievar Castle, which is thought to have been the inspiration for Cinderella's castle. For over 300 years, the Forbes family owned the castle, and it more than got a name for itself in its own right. It has a multitude of turrets, carved stonework, ornate corbels, and a tinted pink facade. It is a thing of beauty, and it's hard not to be inspired by it. Alongside Walt Disney, the castle has also attracted royalty to see it, such as Queen Victoria. The setting of the castle is equally as beautiful as the building itself. From the woods and rolling hills to its isolated location in the lush fields of Scotland, what's not to like? The castle is one of the best preserved in Scotland, having remained mostly unchanged since its construction by William Forbes in 1626. It then remained a family home of the Forbes until it was gifted to the National Trust for Scotland in the 1960s. Number 1. The Emperor's New Groove, Machu Picchu, Cusco, Peru. Pachas Village, from the Disney film The Emperor's New Groove, was inspired by none other than Machu Picchu in Cusco, Peru. Many believe that Machu Picchu was the long-forgotten residence of Pachacutty, an Incan emperor. The site, which was supposedly built around 1450 in the Cusco region, is nearly 8,000 feet up a mountain in Peru and was abandoned post-Spanish conquest. It then wasn't rediscovered until 1911. When it was, it became a marvel that many people had to explore. By the 20th century, it was a popular location and eventually became one of the 7 wonders of the world. Some of the other wonders include the Great Pyramid of Giza, Hanging Gardens of Babylon, Colossus of Rhodes, and the Lighthouse of Alexandria. It's also a UNESCO World Heritage Site, making it even more enticing for the avid traveler. The ruins inspired Disney film teams, and that's clear in the landscape encompassing Pachas Village. They look eerily similar, as does the palace, to what you would find exploring this isolated Peru location. If you're an avid hiker, or you're even just a Disney film lover intrigued by Disney locations that exist in real life, then there's every reason to check this one out in person. Don't these just make you want to have an extended Disney movie marathon? Can you honestly say you recognized any or all of these? Also, check out our other cool stuff showing up on screen right now. See you next time!